So I have quite a few things to talk about right now regarding the New York Giants. We are getting to that time of the year, training camp is on the horizon, we are starting to learn more and more about the young guys, and there is one underrated sleeper pick the Giants made that I want to talk about and break down. There's also a few situations to talk about with a few different key players. I don't want to spoil everything I'm going to get into off rip, but before I do dive in, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, and your support truly does mean the world. Alright, so the New York Giants might just be one of the biggest wildcards in football right now, and I don't mean that in a trendy kind of way. I mean that in the sense that there's a legitimate case to be made that this team has one of the most dominant players in the league, a sneaky loaded defensive front, and a quietly retooled tight end room that could completely change how this offense functions. And still, none of that matters unless they start winning. It's the kind of frustrating, confusing, borderline exhausting situation where people are split between optimism and burnout, and rightfully so, because how many years can you look at someone like Dexter Lawrence and say, yeah, he's the best player on the field again, and then wake up the next morning and the Giants are sitting at 3-14. Let's start right there, because if there's one person this team should be building around, like their entire future depended on it, it's Dexter Lawrence. ESPN just dropped a list ranking him as the best defensive tackle in football, and honestly, it feels late. This isn't new. Giants fans have been knowing this for years. What this guy does every single week, he's not just eating up blocks or doing dirty work, he's dominating. He leads all nose tackles and pressures over the last 3 years by a wide margin, not even close. Jordan Davis has 22, Vita Vea has 23, and then Dexter Lawrence, he has 103. That's not a typo. You can add those other two together, double it, and you're still not touching what Lawrence has done. And keep in mind, he's doing this while getting double teamed over 74% of the time. That's literally 3 out of every 4 snaps with grown men trying to neutralize him, and they still can't stop him. What's wild is when the Giants traded Odell Beckham Jr. years ago, nobody thought the best player in that deal would turn out to be a nose tackle, but here we are. Lawrence was picked 17th overall in that trade and has become the best non-quarterback on this team, and there's a real argument that he's a top 5 non-quarterback player in this league. He had 9 sacks last year in just 12 games. He's not just good for his position, he's elite by any standard, and when he's lined up in that A-gap, it's just different. Chris Jones, who's second on the ESPN defensive tackle rankings, barely even lines up in the A-gap. Lawrence lived there, over 300 snaps last year, over 500 the year before that. This guy is old school in the best way possible, a throwback to dominant defensive lines, but it doesn't mean anything if the team around him keeps collapsing. And that's where the frustration really comes in, because if you're Dexter Lawrence, how many years of your prime do you give away to a rebuild that doesn't progress? How long can you sit through 3-win seasons before the thought creeps in that maybe your greatness is being wasted? And it's not like he's complained. He's been vocal, yeah, but he's been loyal. He's said all the right things. He's tried to rally the locker room. He's tried to trust the process, but at some point, even a guy like him, one of the best humans on the roster, not just players, is going to have a limit. He's a competitor, he's got Hall of Fame level talent, and if the Giants can't put a winning team around him, that conversation about trade rumors is going to get a whole lot louder. And that can't happen. They cannot afford to let anything like that happen. Now, to their credit, Joe Shane and Brian Dable seem to know what's at stake. They went out and doubled down on what they do best, and that's defense. The addition of Brian Burns is a massive step towards that. You put Burns on the edge, Kayvon Thibodeaux on the other, and now all of a sudden you just can't send the entire offensive line at Dexter. You've got to pick your poison. Throw in Abdul Carter and the rookie and Darius Alexander, and the Giants now have 5 legit pass rushers who can rotate and stay fresh. Darius Alexander, by the way, might be one of the most slept on rookies in this class. Yeah, he's 25. Yeah, he was a 3rd round pick, but in a front this loaded, he's going to get one-on-ones, and I think he's going to eat. And I'm not saying the Giants have a top 5 front just yet, but the pieces are here for that kind of ceiling if they stay healthy and if the coaching staff gets the rotation right. This group could take over games. But again, this only matters if they win. The Giants have to stop wasting years. They got the franchise defensive tackle. They've got a retooled defensive front. And now surprisingly, they might have something brewing at tight end that could change the dynamics of their offense. Let's talk about that, because no one expected to be talking about Thomas Fidone this much in July, but here we are. This kid has completely changed the vibe in the tight end room. A 7th round pick out of Nebraska with back-to-back torn ACLs early in college. Yeah, that's not exactly the resume of a future breakout candidate, but what's happening here isn't just a feel-good story. there's some real stuff to get excited about. First of all, the measurables are off the charts. Fidone ranked in the 94th percentile in terms of athleticism among all tight ends who've gone through the combine process. He ran a 40-yard dash in the 91st percentile, so he's got elite explosiveness. He had a great speed score, he had a good shuttle time, the physical tools are there, and it's not just numbers. Travis Kelce personally went out of his way at tight end U to tell Fidone he was impressed with his athleticism and the top of his routes, and that's not something you just ignore. That's Kelce, the best tight end in football, giving props to a rookie that was taken in the 7th round. And what makes this even more interesting is how the Giants approached the offseason. They didn't just take a flyer on Fidone, they sent 4 tight ends to tight end U: Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson, Chris Manhertz, and then of course Fidone, and that tells you they want to build this room from the ground up and see who separates themselves. Bellinger's entering a contract year, and he hasn't really looked like the same player since his rookie season. Johnson is the name to watch. He's the one the team is most excited about, standing at 6'6", 260 pounds with blazing speed for his size. He's the guy who could stretch the seam and be that vertical mismatch weapon if he takes the next step. But Fidone, he might sneak his way into this rotation sooner rather than later, especially if they start favoring athleticism and upside over just experience. And look, Fidone's production isn't going to blow you away, only 25 catches in 1 year, 36 the next, but this is a guy who had to completely rebuild his career after 2 torn ACLs, and the fact that he played every single game in 2023 and 24 tells me he's past the injuries and is finally stable, and that's huge because before all of that, he was the number 2 tight end in the entire 2021 recruiting class, and he was the number 1 recruit in Iowa. At one point, there were people saying he was better than Brock Bowers, and I'm not even lying about that. That's so true. And while I'm not going there because Bowers is a generational prospect, the fact that Fidone was even in the conversation says something about his ceiling. He's not there yet. He's not a starter right now. But 2 years from now, I would not be shocked at all if he's a starting caliber tight end in this league, maybe even for the Giants. What the Giants are doing at tight end actually tells you a lot about how this team is trying to build. They're looking for traits, athleticism, size, explosion. You've got Bellinger, Johnson, Fidone, all guys that are 6'5" or taller and over 255 pounds. They're all elite testers. They're giving themselves options. You hit on Theo Johnson in the 4th, you find Fidone in the 7th, you let the competition do the rest. But again, all of this is only going to matter if the team stops falling apart offensively. The defense is getting there. Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Thibs. This pass rush has real teeth, but the offense, it's been inconsistent at best. If Daniel Jones is healthy and protected, we might finally get to see what this passing game looks like with a field-stretching tight end and a real pass rush supporting them, but that's a massive if. Everything hinges on the offensive line and quarterback play, and if those 2 areas aren't fixed this year, we're going to be right back in the same place talking about wasted potential and wondering how long elite players like Lawrence will stay committed. So there's a clock ticking in New York. I know it's early in the rebuild, and it's not just for Dable or Shane, but it's for the whole operation. Dexter Lawrence is too good to be stuck on a team that doesn't win. Fidone is way too talented to be buried on the depth chart for too long, and this pass rush, it's built to dominate right now, not in 2026, not someday, now. So the Giants need to prove this year that they're more than a team with cool storylines and impressive workout warriors. They need to win football games, and they need to do it while their stars are still in their prime, because if they don't, they're not just wasting time, they're wasting careers, and at some point, that's going to catch up with you. But yeah, that's really all I have to say for this video. It is an exciting time of the year with us being about 2 weeks out from training camp. I just can't wait for football things to really start, so we have some real storylines to talk about. But yeah, man, if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe, because your support truly does mean the world. And also, let me know what you would like to see next, and until then, I will see you all later.